Hey, welcome. My name's Nick. Thanks for tuning in to Morning Manna. This week we're answering the question, what is communion? The past couple of days we've been reading through Luke's account of the Last Supper, so today we're going to finish that passage by picking up at Luke 22, verse 19. Now this is the quintessential passage that describes Jesus instituting the sacrament of communion. And notice that this isn't just a description of events, it's a prescription for us, the church, to follow and do likewise. Let's read it together. Luke 22, verse 19 says, "And he took the bread, and when he had given thanks," there's our word for Eucharist, Eucharistia. "When he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, 'This is my body, and which is given to you. Do this in remembrance of me.' And likewise the cup after they had eaten, saying, 'This cup is poured out for you, is the new covenant in my blood.'" This is a powerful moment. Jesus is not only modeling the way for us and describing some of the symbolism that's present, but he's also prescribing this holy sacrament for all believers to repeat. And that's why he says, "Do this in remembrance of me." Now notice he doesn't say how often we should do it. He just says that we should do it. In fact, later on, Paul reiterates this point further in 1 Corinthians 11:26 when he says, "For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, proclaim the Lord's death until he returns." So the important part is that we follow this instruction to do it. Furthermore, he never specified where you have to do it. Of course, this normally takes place in a church service, but can you do this at home and lead your family in communion? I mean, Jesus was in a home, not a temple, and he was with his closest friends, so why not? I also want to point out the symbolism that Jesus describes in each of the elements. He takes the unleavened bread, which would be at any Passover meal, but he describes it as a symbol of his body. And just as his body would be broken and beaten in the same way, he broke the bread and he shared that with those who were with him, and they ate it together. I'm reminded of Isaiah 53, verse 5, that says, "But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed." I don't want you to miss the promise that Jesus is offering us. He experienced brokenness so that we could experience wholeness. This is true not only for salvation, but in our physical bodies and our mental health, our relationships, and even in our soul. Jesus purchased wholeness for us. And one day we'll experience that fullness of his wholeness when we get to heaven. But even now, that which is perfect in the future, we can experience that in part right now. That's so powerful. And then Jesus, he took the cup. Now, according to tradition, each person would drink 4 cups of wine at the Passover meal. But before you get ahead of yourselves, understand each cup was heavily diluted with water, so take it easy. But the point is this: Jesus, he takes the cup and he describes it as a symbol for his blood. Hebrew law dictates there's no forgiveness of sin without the shedding of blood. So it would be Jesus' blood that was shed instead of ours so that we could be forgiven and be made righteous. Jesus says this is the symbol of the new covenant. So when we take communion together, does it have to be unleavened bread and wine? Truth is, even though those particular elements were part of the Passover meal, Jesus, he still used them as symbols. There's nothing inherently holy about those particular ingredients. So whether you use unleavened bread or normal bread, wine or juice, the significance isn't what you're eating and drinking, but the things that those stand for. Now, one quick caveat. Although I don't believe that there's a theological significance to what you eat and drink during communion, I do believe that our heart should be postured to maintain reverence. Nothing about Holy Communion should be treated as common. It should be special, set apart. So if what you're eating and drinking distracts you from that heart posture of reverence, then don't use it. And for each person, that could look different, but it requires us to examine ourselves. And that we'll talk more about tomorrow. God bless you. See you then.